All right, thank you for coming back. Just a quick introduction on my side. In addition to moonlighting as a co-host for the Product Tank, I lead the product team at a company called Everstream Analytics, which is also an AI-based company, and that is also the reason this topic is very close to my heart. So yeah, very, very excited to have a conversation today. And we also have Dominic with us. Dominic, if you don't mind introducing yourself as well.
Absolutely. I was thinking for a second to be insulted or not by like bad UIs, because I'm now like since a couple of months officially part of SAP. No, seriously. I mean, I work with LeanIX in Bonn, software as a service scale up like 6 months ago, now acquired by SAP. We have the pleasure to work with like a lot of CIO organizations from like the more corporate world, learning a lot about AI, but also with 200 people in product and engineering on our AI journey ourselves as well. I oversee product and I oversee UX design, so it's really cool to have this focus. Looking forward.
Great. So let's dive into the questions. We already have a number of questions in Slido, so feel free to use that. And because Jana mentioned Clippy, which was a good segue into our first question. So one of our audience members asked, traditional UIs, such as those of Microsoft Office applications in the 2000s, had the advantage of discoverability, finding functionality quickly, and knowing what functionality did not exist. So how do you address that with chat AI or AI-based solutions where it's a little bit more abstract? So first, Jana, if you could answer that, and then we'll go to Dominic.
Yeah, very good question. I think it goes into the direction of the more freestyle interaction that we have in conversational user interfaces. Well, actually, maybe just to start, recently I read an article. I don't remember who it was, right? But it was some kind of design leader, and it stated that prompt engineering is probably one of the worst user experiences that we have ever seen, right? So it looks very nice. We can use natural language. We don't need the learning curve to learn all the functionalities and so on. We can just, speak as we would speak to a human coworker or another human, and then we get the output. But then in the end, when you try to understand how to actually structure your prompts and build your prompts, right? Then at some point you might discover, okay, I actually need a prompt engineer. I don't know, does it still exist? The position of prompt engineer. A couple of months ago, it was very relevant, right? So indeed, it's really important to kind of, also bring the structure into your prompts. Now, in the UX, we have multiple patterns to do that, right? So one of them is prompt suggestions, right? For example, if you go on ChatGPT, then it shows you some examples there. I don't know, probably plan your summer vacation. That's the most popular one across all conversational AI interfaces. So basically it just provides you these kind of suggestions, right? And normally what you also have is that you can see a very concise suggestion in the interface, right? So like plan your summer vacation. But then when you see the actual prompt behind it, you will see that the prompt is actually much longer, much more complex, and there is much more skill in it, right? So that's the prompt that's actually then used to control the behavior of the model. So that's one, right, as prompt suggestions. And then there is also prompt templates. So for example, if you want to place an order for something, right, then you will still not really formulate it all in natural language, but rather you have a structured template where you can set the parameters of your order. And that, I have to say, I mean, it comes pretty close to SAP and Co. Right? So these are the patterns at the moment, right? In addition to pure prompt engineering, so one of the most questionable UXs. But I think the field is really in very fast development, so that's definitely not the final point in the journey.
Dominic, anything to add?
My favorite story is like 3 months ago when I was traveling back from, I believe, Slovenia to Germany. Plane was delayed, and I had enough time to like really play around with the Lufthansa app, and try to rebook my flight and then reimburse my flight. It was a terrific experience how not to do any conversational AI. So fun fact, in the end, I uncovered like one happy pass. And for the happy pass, it was, wow, really cool. Within like 1.5, or within 10 seconds, I got my result. Very 1, 2, 3, 4, cool. I was like, by any chance, meeting the happy pass where the designers and the product managers has thought about. And it leads me a bit to like what you said, but then also stronger into what we do in our organization right now. If we think about conversational interface, we step by step uncover that it's really about the job to be done in the end. Very, very simple. I mean, in the end, you talked about AI applications. We try to go away a bit from like, we want to create AI applications. We want to have AI in our application, but we want to have AI in our application to help the user getting their job done. When for some sporadic user, it's the job to search for something, then you need to bring it into your conversational AI, not as like prompt, but guide them to say, hey, you can search, or I anticipate you're here for the first time, you want to search for something. I feel this is some like kind of evolution that also then the UX designer, the product manager sees, like it's not starting with AI first, it's starting with, does my user want to do?
Great. So Dominic, staying with you, your teams are also working on a lot of AI products. So can you first start with telling us what kind of struggles or technical challenges your teams face? And then Jana, we'll go to you as well.
I would not even start from a technical side, but more from a mindset perspective. And looking both into product and engineering, it's like you start to change the discipline to some extent. The product manager, as a UX designer, you somewhat need to level up your game or re-level your game in understanding, can it be a potential AI use case? Can it not be an AI use case? What is a checklist? Like, is it a tedious exercise? Is there some legwork included? Is it data conversion, things like this. And on the engineering side, you have a lot of skepticism first, which is the right thing to approach it. Like, hey, AI is maybe not advanced enough to tackle certain use case. And also there's some conviction is needed to say, let's really try it and fail, etc. And I like the way you described in your talk, like there is not a 9-month project saying, okay, now you have an AI use case and then it's ready. It's more this like iteration and learning and failing. So we succeeded to bring like first simple AI use cases, text generation or something, into production, and now we are learning intuitively how to make it better. And step by step, we are trying now to unlock the larger cases on Jana's scala, going a bit from like assisted only into augmented. And obviously there it's getting harder and harder. And it helps us to understand, we need to understand the problem at hand, we need to understand the data. And then obviously getting it into production is another beast as well from a technical side.
Jana, anything to add?
Well, I mean, I would subscribe to everything that Dominic said. I think just to add is that I think that there is a much closer interaction that's needed now between product managers and engineers, and also much more thinking in terms of the role of the other, right? So product managers, as most of the capabilities, they are now actually hidden in the model and in the backend, right? They need to understand this. They also need to understand the limitations, how it works, and what the product, so what kind of value the product can actually create with these capabilities. And then on the other hand, of course, the engineers, they can't really just, as in traditional workflows, right? So basically, they're just there to realize the features and the product benefits that are kind of formulated by the product managers. But instead, they really also need to understand the business context, the value that the product is to deliver, and then to kind of bake these components into the models, into the systems that they're building, right? So it's not just programming to a front-end specification anymore, as it was oftentimes before.
So staying on that theme, when we talk about AI products, there's this perception that you push a button and then the perfect result comes out, and especially in a B2B context. How do you account for error tolerance? Because customers may be paying a lot of money to buy your solution and they expect the perfect result. How do you educate and account for that trust as well, that not everything will be perfect, but there's a journey to it? Any learnings?
Well, the first learning is that tolerance for errors is, of course, not so high, right? Even if you have a model that performs like 90%, 95%, which is quite high for, of course, it depends on the application, right? But normally it's quite high. Then still getting this every 10th case wrong, it's in the B2B context, it's an issue, right? It's understandable because the customers, they don't want to spend the time checking, they will not check all the results, right? But they would need to check maybe 30 or 40% of the results to make sure that they catch those 10%. So that's understandable, right? We cannot just say, okay, why don't you understand that the AI makes mistakes? So what we normally do in that case, of course, we do repeat and we do promote this, the accuracy when we can and where we can. So that really needs to be repeated and over communicated. That's one thing. And then on the other hand, especially when we build predictive AI, we also show the confidence of the predictions that we're making, right? So that's a very simple hack. You just show the confidence, right? If it's high confidence, then okay, you advise basically the customer to just accept it and take it as it is. If the confidence is low, then they should go and verify it or maybe even reject it, right? So that's something that we have found quite useful in many cases, not in all of them, right? So for example, if you have a Netflix recommendation, then it's probably too much of an overhead to show the confidence scores for each of them. I mean, it's so then you can take this risk, okay, of the customer actually hitting a wrong recommendation.
It's all about the context, right? I mean,
Yeah.
in this Lufthansa example, I would be damn happy if I got in 95%, so in 19 out of 20 cases, something
Yes.
good out of this. So,
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
in other cases, if like we do surgery, I would not accept 99.9 or 99.99. It's
Yeah, on the back of that, we actually have a question around if you do end up losing the trust of the user, is there anything to do to come back from that? That's a tough one.
a tricky one.
Doesn't happen so
I would challenge actually whether this is an AI specific question or not. And maybe this is the one thought that I have with the entire evening, like talking a lot about like AI products. Maybe this is the wrong way to look into this. I mean, we're also not talking about like database products. We just accept that the database. Yeah, absolutely. But then in the end, I mean, the topic, what do I do if I lose my user? I have as a SaaS business every single day, whether it's B2C, whether it's B2B. I need to think about retention, think about trust, I need to think about value. So.
Yeah. Perhaps also to shed more light into this black box as to what has gone into it to gain back the trust and credibility. That could be one way. Good. We have a question specifically for you, Jana. With your example, did you launch a working product? And how did you make sure that it was good enough to launch for different personas? Can you share?
Well, we did launch it. It's now in the beta testing phase, right? So basically it's a phase of 2 months where multiple users at the company are using it. It's open to all the users, right? But it's just not publicly launched in this big, on the big scale. How did we make sure that it works for a different persona? So that's something that we, of course, baked into the development process, right? By using this progressive disclosure mechanism that I described. Actually, I adopted the term from a different case, but I think it works here as well, right? So basically showing simple visualizations for people who just want a specific insight in a specific situation, right? So especially knowledge workers, managers, and then allowing them to drill down into the data so that then addresses more the needs of more advanced users, of data analysts, and so on, right? That's they're constantly measuring the user satisfaction. So that's in terms of the basically measuring the quality of the system. But then, of course, what we also see is that once users get used to a certain level of performance, as said, they want more. So they want more functionality and they also want more quality, right? So that's why we also build kind of automated optimization mechanisms into the system, so tracking the user data and then also improving the performance of the models automatically based on the data, right? So this good enough, it's a very dynamic notion. I think that's a bit more in AI than in other products actually, right?
Maybe I was thinking
Yeah.
maybe this would be my question a bit. Is the like operating model
Mhm.
now differently? I mean, if I would think about like a classical product, whatever this is, I would think now, cool, there has been a product team working towards the launch, and then hopefully the same product team is now iterating. It's now getting feedback, both from a commercial side, is it working, is it not working? From a user side, is it not working? Making it better out of these
Yeah.
signals. Do you see any difference in this particular product?
Well, if you look at it conceptually, then it's not different, but I would say that the difference is, I mean, the practical difference is in the automated optimization, right? So based on the data that you're collecting, and that's not trivial, right? So it's something that needs to be developed in a custom way, but I think it's really something that's needed if you're building like a larger scale P2B system, right? I think that in traditional product development, you can't really have this degree of automation.
How did you like staff your teams in this? Was there a lot of AI specialists in there?
On the topic of staffing teams, we do have a question on that. So what kind of organizational model, whether it be in terms of capabilities or topologies, would you suggest to implement when using AI for B2B products?
When using or when building?
Let's go with building, since we're building products, talking about building products.
How long do we have?
All night. I'm sure nobody has anywhere else to go.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
You
Dominic.
have a lot to comment.
No, seriously. I mean, it's a highly debated topic
Yeah.
currently. Happy to also exchange afterward, or maybe just also here with some of you. We have strong advocates to say you need to centralize. It goes a bit into what you said, Jana, as well. Like you need specialists first of all, and then specialists can be like traveler and enable others, and step by step you raise the bar in other teams as well. Where there's this other model to say you want to decentralize. In the end, you want to treat AI more or less as a technology, and you want to step by step bring all people in their domains using AI. We have a bit of mixture of both, because I feel it's also step by step important to understand the different AI cases that we are having. If we talk about conversational AI, we potentially only talk about a thin layer converting like user input, like typing or something, into deterministic API calls. And yes, this is AI in the front, and in the back, it's like calling the right APIs. From a user perspective, or from a developer perspective, nothing changes, but that there's another user interface like in front of it. Different thing is if you really go deep into training your own model and thinking about how do I get like all the details into my model, validating it step by step, making it better, and so on. Or if you go deep into prompt engineering or RAG or something, it's different cases. So I feel in the end, I'm in the camp to say we step by step want to decentralize things. We need to also work with our engineers to step by step bring in other skills in there. But we also see that often the central mode is good to really incubate things at starts.
Right. Jana, you've seen a lot of companies in your role. Anything you can share in terms of what works, what doesn't work?
Well, in terms of building the team basically for AI development, I think it so normally what works is that it's very multidisciplinary, that the different positions communicate well together, right? So that's again, for example, this example between product managers and then the engineers, right? So each of them really need to kind of come together in the golden middle. And of course, you have all these traditional positions, right? So machine learning engineer, data scientist, data engineer, and so on. I think that's not the crucial point, how you name them and how you compose them, right? But you need the technical people, you need product people who understand the technology, right? So including UX people. And what we find is very important also in B2B is the domain expertise. So make sure you really have the domain experts, because talking about losing trust. So the closest that we came in terms of losing trust is when the customer tells us, okay, I'm not sure that the model understands our industry, right? And then you kind of have a problem, right? Because that's the most basic asset for them. They don't need a ChatGPT who produces some generic content about their industry.
Great.
You just mentioned UX designers as only a bit. Is there some specific reason? Because we see that the role of the UX designer is quite heavily changing as well.
It's changing, exactly. It's changing, and I would say that that it includes more and more also of the technical components, right? So, for example, if you design a conversational UI, then the tasks of the UX designer are very different than if you're building a visual UI, right?
And staying on that theme, we have a question around prototyping AI solutions before building them. Do you think it's useful to simulate AI by using UX methods like Wizard of Oz?
We invest a bit more in like not prototyping from a UX perspective, something that you potentially also need to do, but prototyping more from an algorithm perspective. This is feasible. Like we have an extra role right now, somebody who is really skilled, first of all, in understanding the domain, and then scripting and putting things into an AI quickly to see whether this is working. So not production ready, but more like, is this something we can solve with this technology? This is, I feel, something that is evolving because yes, you want engineers in the end think about can they productize it, but we also want to train product people and UX people to spot like opportunities for AI. And maybe this is coming more out of a B2B understanding that, or maybe also the maturity is still not there, that we first of all really come from a data side, because we feel the UX side or the UI side we can solve. Eventually we have done this, but it might be also interesting to really spot from a user perspective, will the user accept it in the end?
So we also do a lot of technical discovery, right? Because there are so many models that are coming out. So you have LLMs, you have the embedding models, right? And also many frameworks. So and the capabilities, they're not really well documented, right? So really every team and every like project, you need to find it out basically from scratch. What kind of models can I plug in here? That's one thing, but then of course also discovery on the user side, and I think that's very similar to, so that's one aspect that's very similar to the classical discovery process, right? And there we normally just start with some manually coded prototypes, right? So just showing, okay, what would be the input, what would be the output, without investing too much into really running the backend.
So I think UX is a big topic in this audience. It's mentioned that UX was mentioned quite a few times already. Can you please tell us something about your product/UX design team and the workflows between those teams?
In our case, the workflow is very lean because we have one product manager. So for this specific project, we have one product manager and one UX designer, right? So both of them work really closely with the client. Normally we have like weekly meetings with the client, right? So they will present the mockups in the first stage, then we will present some interactive demos in the second round, and then they will give the client some actual prototypes to test, right? So it's really this very tight interaction. Well, as tight as it can be, right? Because again, as B2B, all the people are in their jobs, right? So some of the feedback they will provide during the meeting, some of the feedback they will go back and basically do their homework on their own. So I would say that in our case, it's really more the interaction with the client that matters than the interaction between the product manager and the UX designer, because there are just two of them, right? So it's really a very lean setup also.
Dominic?
Yeah, we invest quite a bit in this classical modern triangle between product manager, UX designer, and engineers in the end. Very, very clear product manager owning value, owning viability, UX designer owning usability, engineering team owning feasibility and having them work together. And it's fascinating to see how different triangles, different triads find different ways to do this. Some are very very pushy and saying in a discovery call early on, we need the engineers, we need the UX designer. Others are doing a bit more of this separation of work. Both is fine for me. I don't think, I mean, in the end, it's humans coming together.
Okay.
So we are not trying to reinforce like there is one fits all for all the different teams, but having this clear model to say you want to work on eye level, and you want to clearly like work together there. And it's also something where we feel people are not super comfortable in it. You need to invest there. Also, for example, challenging the UX designer to step up, to say, you're not only doing the screen, you really want to understand like the mental model, as you put it, like you really want to understand like the information architecture and really try to put yourself into the product manager's shoes. Is also some great opportunity for UX designers, but then also some involvement needed.
Yeah, I think in this triangle, really with AI, really it gets like smaller, right? So there is much less distance between the people, right? So that's what we are seeing in terms of the people needing to understand the roles of the others better, right? So that's why it's getting also more challenging, but also more exciting.
Dominic, maybe this is a question to you. Do you see the learning curve being quite steep for example, a UX designer to move from traditional products into more AI-based products?
Again, I feel it's not about traditional to AI, but it's about this this mindset having. I'm not the one doing screens and just delivering screens, especially as for people coming more out of an agency setting. I am all of a sudden encouraged to think about like the entire product with my colleagues. I feel the jump is a bit more from there to there, and then AI again. It gives me another information architecture in my UI. Obviously, it gives me another thing to think about. Like in my discovery call, should I solve it with a conversational interface? Should I solve it with a classical UI? What is actually the thing you try to achieve? Yeah, but I feel this is a bigger change. Really getting involved early on.
Okay. There's one particular question that has a lot of votes, so I'm going to ask this question. Customer is always right, but how do you deal with those who use a mix of words and definitions and conflate things like machine learning or training a model when they really mean a system prompt? Any advice for our audience?
To be honest, I mean, I might be not politically correct, but we tend to overhear these things. I mean, so really we just try to understand, okay, what's the point of the customer, right? We don't expect them to have any technical knowledge, right? So we just, try to get into their shoes and to understand the point that they try to make. Normally, it's not about the intricacies of the AI models, but it's about the problem that they're trying to solve, and the solution that they want to see built. So normally, when there are these false assumptions, misconceptions, and so on, which don't really harm their mental model of their problem and the solution to address them, then we tend to just overhear them. We haven't attacked the feet of educating them about, the mathematical, although that's not yet mathematical, but, but very pragmatic. Sorry about that.
A sentence that has shaped me, the early stage of LeanIX was, our job is not to make the customer happy, our job is to make them successful. I truly believe there's something behind it, because no, the customer is not always right. But clearly, I feel it's again thinking about the context when you need to go like really deep and educating people to say it's not the right technology. There's another technology. For example, me educating my product managers. You want to talk with the engineers on eye level, and please do the legwork and really understand whether this is the right technology you're talking about. And then on the marketing side as well, like our ambition not to fool people. Like everyone is talking about AI empowered product right now, fine, but we want to, if we talk about this as AI empowered, we want to at least be sure that there is AI in it. And then we want to equip also people to tell like what kind of AI is in it, being transparent about what is really happening. with their data
Mhm.
in there.
So staying on,
It's interesting to see. Maybe question in your direction might be: is this going away in some years? What do you think? Will people really adapt and internalize all of these differences, or will it stay?
Well, there's this, common saying. I think, I don't know if it was about technology or AI, but as soon as it works, it's not technology or it's not AI anymore. I don't remember who said this, right? So, I mean, we have AI in many of the products that we use daily, right? So we have, I said, Netflix, YouTube, we have all the functions in our cars and so on, right? So a lot of AI stuff that we're using on a daily basis, but which has lost this character, of being as unpredictable, as non-deterministic, and so on, as we now have it in the new applications. So I think we will adjust in this way also, right? And then also go away from this debate about the magic of AI. I think it's a shift that we all need to make, but as said, users will not make it on their own. We really need to support them.
Yeah, fully agree. I think this is going to be internalized more and more. I mean, if you're using Netflix, you don't think about the AI behind it. You accept it, and it becomes a part of your life. So I think over time we will not think about it so explicitly so much, and it becomes internalized.
Should work hard to keep it a bit like this, that we're not fully internalizing it. But
Yeah, perhaps.
We're keeping some of the mystery out there, right?
Great. Because we talked about Netflix, I want to talk about personalization. So AI does offer the ability to provide personalization, but in B2B systems, how can we balance personalization for individual users versus the organizational needs? Any thoughts?
Well, that was actually my question, right, to myself, because because that's something that's keeping us a bit busy at the moment, right? Because we see that of course, users want the personalization on user level, right? So when they select projects, they want something that they can easily implement, that their individual managers will accept, and so on. And on the other hand, of course, management wants customization to the strategy of the company, right? So to the general direction of the company. So that's, I mean, for us, that's a bit of an open question at the moment. We don't have an ideal answer to that, but I think it really also depends on the whole culture and openness of the company. So how much power is the company basically willing to give to individuals, to the employees? How much trust, right? So how much trust that these employees will eventually also go into the general direction of the company. And I think that as in general, we go into this direction of empowering individuals and employees more and more, then of course this personalization on the user level will also become very attractive in AI products.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, 100% agree. We haven't figured it out ourselves yet fully as well, but what we see is step by step things that you will have in your normal work, in your normal life, on your smartphone, whether it's you're using voice, you're using personalization on your apps. You want to bring them to the enterprise as well. So.
Staying on that note, do you think there is a place for tools to do A/B testing and analytics about customer usage when building AI products?
Well, a place in terms of a business idea, and not or like business opportunity, or
Yeah, business opportunity using products that are fed
Yeah.
by AI models.
Okay. Well, I would agree in that case with Dominic that it's pretty similar to other products, right? So I think the opportunity is definitely there. A/B testing is an important method. There are tools for doing that. Now, adapting this specifically for AI, what could you test? For example, you have different alternatives of a model, right? And you're testing how they perform differently, how the user satisfaction is, and so on. But I think that's something that we can also do using the existing tools.
You have different user interfaces. One is very like descriptive, telling, okay, this is going on in the back, like informing people. The other one is like more or less on the black box thing to say, wow, AI powered. We just want to test it first of all. So this will clearly stays it.
All right, we're almost coming up on time. I want to wrap up with a relatively easy question. And Dominic, I'm not trying to embarrass you, but how many languages do you speak and what are they?
Depends on the quality. When you count everything, it's 4. It's somewhat French, quite nice Norwegian, English, and German.
Okay.
Programming language.
So Jana, tell us which languages you speak.
Well, I speak 6 plus 1 language. So basically 6 languages. My native language is Russian. Then obviously I speak English. I speak Chinese because I studied it during my master. I speak German because I live here. I speak French because I finished high school in France. And I speak Italian because I was a bit bored during COVID.
That's what it takes to be successful in building AI products. So thank you everyone for joining today. I hope you enjoyed it and we'll see you next time.